France 24's chief foreign editor Rob Parsons reporting there. Well, at various stages during the Russian invasion of Ukraine, Russian mercenaries fighting for the Wagner group have played an important role. There appear to be some growing tensions between Wagner and the regular Russian forces, which have notably been exposed in the months-long battle for the eastern Ukrainian city of Bakhmut. Well, the head of the Wagner mercenary outfit, Yevgeny Prigozhin, has levelled various grievances at the top military brass in Moscow, accusing them of trying, and I quote, to steal his victories. He's also pointed the finger of blame at Moscow for slowing military gains, which he said was the result of, quote, monstrous bureaucracy. Well, let's get more now from Marina Miron, who is a research fellow in the Defence Studies Department for the Centre for Military Ethics at King's College London. Thank you so much for speaking to us. We've heard the Russian Defence Minister Sergei Shoigu being accused of committing treason by the head of Wagner. Just tell us, what is the source of this rift between Wagner and the military brass in Moscow?
Well, in order to answer that question, I have to go a little bit back, because this rift has been growing for now over a year, I think. And Wagner used to be a group in the shadows that has been used by the Kremlin to pursue its foreign policy goals. And Wagner never really wanted to be in the spotlight. And around summer, Wagner has started to basically want to gain more traction, and specifically Prigozhin wanted to show that he's a powerful political actor. And he started dictating his terms, because he saw that because of the Russian army's poor performance on the battlefield, he could set an example of how to conduct military operations. And around September, Prigozhin started criticizing the Russian generals, and he even called for demotion of General Lapin, who was in charge of the Liman grouping, after which Liman had been lost. And so he was this kind of hawkish force opposing the way that special military operation is going, and specifically this criticism was directed towards the defense minister Shoigu and the General Gerasimov, who's now in charge of the special military operation, and to appease Prigozhin at that point, because he was indispensable, his group was indispensable. General Surovikin, whom he backed, was appointed to oversee the special military operation. And now what happened is that in Solidar, actually Wagner was responsible for doing the vast amount of dirty work, so to say, for the Russian armed forces. However, the MOD in its official statement said that it was Russian airborne forces and didn't even mention Wagner. And I think that kind of, created a lot of tension, added tension to what has already been there.
Does Prigozhin pose a threat, do you think, to President Putin himself, or is he being careful to single out individuals in the on the military side of things there in Moscow?
I think he's seeking more political traction, but not in a sense of potential replacement for Putin, because Putin is now in a kind of this tricky situation where he has to balance this act with the MOD on the one hand and Prigozhin and Wagner on the other hand. And Prigozhin is not alone. He has supporters. He has the likes of the Chechen leader Ramzan Kadyrov, who is also kind of sharing Prigozhin's opinion in terms of how the special military operation is going. So I think for Prigozhin, he wants to reform the armed forces. So he wants to get into the MOD. And so I think his criticism is directed more towards the militaries and the general kind of political situation.
I've heard, I've read reports in the last couple of weeks saying that perhaps in the West we tend to overemphasize the importance of Wagner, and perhaps we are buying into their own public relations game of making them out to be this incredibly efficient, incredibly well-equipped, ruthless military force. What do you make of that argument, that perhaps there's a bit of hype behind the Wagner group?
Well, I think there is a hype right now, but as a matter of fact, if we look back at what Wagner used to do for the Kremlin, essentially, we can look at Syria, and when Palmyra was taken back, it was all Wagner that was responsible for that. So I think, yes, there might be hype right now because Prigozhin has become very vocal and very critical of what the MOD is doing, and of the entire kind of military bureaucracy, and handing out medals to those who didn't deserve them. However, I think it is very useful because it's not just military operations that Wagner conducts. They are also participating in information operations in different spots of the world, including Africa. We know they're in Mali, Burkina Faso, and they are also securing natural resources. So I think that in terms of the functions, it's very varied. We don't have to just look at its kind of military performance. And I think as a smaller organization, as a smaller group, obviously it has advantages. It doesn't have that same bureaucracy. So we have to keep it in mind and take it with a grain of salt.
Sure. And just lastly, I'm just wondering here, I mean, is there an opportunity, do you think, for Ukraine and its allies to exploit this rift between Wagner and the military brass in Moscow? Any opportunities that you could perhaps see this perhaps working to the advantage of the Ukrainians ultimately?
Well, I think the best opportunity would be to try and exploit it in the informational domain and kind of conduct psychological operations. In military terms, obviously, the Ukrainian armed forces are not exactly in the position right now to intervene there because, we're seeing this battle for Bakhmut is dragging on and on. So I don't see a lot of opportunities there, but they could capitalize on this information and they can use it to their advantage in order to, let's say, discredit the military, or the other way around, depending on which route they prefer to choose to match their strategic objectives.
Okay, well, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you very much indeed for taking the time to talk to us. Marina Miron at King's College London, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.